the cream of the crop.
So I just saw in the chat we have Chicago House is here. What's up, Chicago House? We're going to be talking about your guys' team after the break, so a little while later. So get your popcorn ready for the bold predictions that we're going to take, and maybe you'll like us, maybe you'll hate us. I don't know. But we'll be talking about you guys later. Right now, it's Midwest United talking about Peter Kosovich up at the hoop.
Finals appearance for the third consecutive year.
But before we do that, your bold prediction for Midwest this year. Where do they end up? What's their season going to be like? You know, in a concise statement, your bold prediction.
Finals appearance for the third consecutive year.
Finals
appearance.
Finalists. Oh my goodness.
Final appearance. They will get into the finals again.
But they won't win. Bold prediction for Innovation City this year.
Bold prediction. They will be fighting for a playoff spot.
Fighting for a playoff spot.
But I guess that's not really that bold.
I mean, no, is it bold?
Brandon, I'm sorry, but I don't see Innovation City making the playoffs this season.
He says his bold prediction is they don't make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, it pains me because, look, I had the chance to interview Brandon the first time during the finals, and he said we're going to be back here next season, and I just don't see it. I don't. Again, they have a lot of players that we haven't seen in action, so this is partly a take just based on what we saw on the tour in Akron. But to the points that you made as well, the competition in Akron is not as good as the competition we'll see this season in the FCS.
Yeah.
And so even though they show that they will be competitive, so they absolutely will be competitive, but I don't see them winning enough games, getting enough points throughout the season to make the play.
So we have a wild take in the chat coming from Luke Miller. Innovation grabs a W against Ole. What say you?
I don't think it's as wild as you would think, because we still haven't seen the roster come out for Ginga. Over the tour.
For Ole, Innovation grabs
a W against Ole? Okay, that's a wild.
So we have a wild take in the chat coming from Luke Miller. Innovation grabs a W against Ole. What say you?
I don't think it's as wild as you would think, because we still haven't seen the roster come out for Ginga. Over the tour.
For Ole, Innovation grabs
a W against Ole? Okay, that's a wild.
Here is possibly the biggest news for Lansing City in the offseason, potentially. So when I look at Lansing City, here's the deal that I see. Last year in the season, the difference between them making the playoffs and not was very similar. The difference between them making the playoffs with room to spare and not was also quite slim, in my opinion. I think if you had to point to one thing that was the most detrimental to them, two things that are closely related come to mind. We mentioned them earlier. Is them having bad mistakes that give up goals. So essentially, as a game as a whole, you're playing down already to, sometimes 3 goals. So here is possibly the biggest news for Lansing City in the offseason, potentially. One of the biggest struggles is at the goalkeeper position.
Yeah.
And who is rostered for Lansing City this year?
Josh Pierce.
But what does that do for this Lansing City team?
I mean, I think it does a lot, right? He's a fantastic shot stopper, so right away he's really solid.
So that addition of Josh Pierce, who do you think is going to get the start on first game?
Actually, Ethan Castaneda. I think there's still such a commitment to the development of the youth at Lansing City, and Ethan's 17 years old. So like even when we're saying about this mistake, that was probably the thing that I saw the most over the tour, and the showcase was that growth from him, and even into the friendlies, saw that continued growth out of Ethan Castaneda, which is what you would expect out of him, especially with that. 3 red cards in that game. 3 red cards.
You could see it on their faces, like they would hit the post again, and they'd be like, "What is happening?"
And they only gave up 4 goals?
But it wasn't competitive.
In 40 minutes?
It wasn't competitive.
4 goals!
A sign that a fan has made, a fan of Downtown Futsal made it. Chicago House is grabbing the sign, holding it up, and they're passing it around.
The ball sticks to his feet. Like, I don't think you should have seen him at practice last night. He was just toying with this. I ain't gonna lie.
What level of crazy do you need to be a goalkeeper in futsal?
11. 11. No one woke up one day and said, I want to be a keeper today. I didn't want to be a goalie.
The third half. I'm Gerard Klepp along with Gerard Iscani. Our second preseason episode and final preseason episode before 2 days, and FCS 2025-26 is here.
Woo. Finally
2 days, and we're going to be going live with a doubleheader, and we're actually going to start there, but a quick preview of what's to come. We are going to be highlighting the second half of the 4 teams that we didn't do last week. So this is Shoreline, this is Ginga, this is Detroit, and this is Ole Futsal Club. Defending champions, unbeaten. We'll be talking about them very soon. And Gerard, before we jump into our first topic, bold predictions. What is your bold prediction for tonight's podcast?
For the podcast?
Yeah, for tonight's third half. Your bold prediction.
There will be an unrealistic bold prediction in the chat.
There will be an unrealistic.
Like, something like Ole losing to Innovation City.
Something like that. My bold prediction is some people are not going to like me very much after tonight. That's my bold prediction. We'll see. But first, before we jump into the teams, let's preview the first game that's going to be happening this weekend. So first game, it is – well, that's going to be the next one. So let's go to there you go. Perfect. So the first game, Ginga hosts Innovation City to open up FCS 25-26 in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. What do you expect?
This is going to be a great way for Innovation to open up their FCS campaign going on the road. It's not the largest travel that they have to face this season, but it's still a really good test for them of what it's going to look like to travel, because that's where we saw some teams like Ginga struggle last season, is on the road. So great test for them opening up, and they get to go against Ginga, who is really solid at home, and so it will be a really good benchmark for them to see where they stand.
I think this is going to be, as you mentioned, I totally agree. It's like every game that the first, for the FCS newcomers, the first game of the season is very much a check.
Yeah,
like where are they at in season time? Innovation going on the road. This is a perfect time to say, hey, what are these guys made of? We do have a preview of some of the rosters for this weekend already. I didn't see Luan Tufani on there. And that I think that is going to be a big loss for Innovation City. I think Ginga is going to take this one. I think it's a rematch from I think we put it on the Akron Tour semifinal rematch. Innovation won that one 4-2, but there were actually 2 goalkeeper mistakes in that game. Actually, it might have been more, but I know there was 2 for sure that led right to goals for Innovation, and Ginga were kind of fighting back the whole game. And Ginga's goals in that game were actually they were really amazing shots to the top shelf in the corner. And so, my opinion is that game, I think Innovation was able to capitalize on those mistakes of Ginga and get a victory and make it to the finals. But I think this time, Ginga at home, I think they're going to have full player availability, and I think they are going to win by at least 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. The only thing I would disagree is I think 3's not enough.
You don't think 3's enough?
I don't. Ginga's really strong at home. Like, they play really solid at home.
But it is a new home court for them.
It is a new home court.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is the player availability. It really didn't have to do as much with the venue. It had to do with the player availability. And when you look at the roster that they brought to all of their away matches, they really had half of the players available, and a lot of times they were missing their best players. And so they had to really focus on getting the commitment from players to travel, which is one of the things we'll talk about when we talk about Ginga later today.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something when we preview Ginga on the road. That's going to be another good first test.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the beginning of the season is going to be full of these. There is information that we have and games that we have watched, but there's a lot of new stuff. And the first few games, first couple games, first away, first home is going to be, I think, key to telling the story for that team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the one call out here, I mean, we're both saying Ginga's going to win, and I think a lot of people at home are thinking the same thing just because we really understand who Ginga is, especially at home. But with Innovation City, they have a lot of players from the Cleveland Crunch, from the Akron Vulcans, and so they have a history of playing indoor, some type of indoor soccer or futsal. And so when you take that experience, if they can translate that, I mean, I wouldn't – as much as I'm saying, like, okay, Ginga's going to win handily, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't be like the shocker like we had last week with Luke saying in the chat that Innovation City's going to win against Ole. Now, that's a shocker. It wouldn't shock me to see them win. I could see it happening. I don't expect it to, though.
I want to just go off of one of the points that you mentioned about Ginga. Let's go ahead and go to number 4. We're going to go out of order.
Yeah, let's go to Ginga. It makes sense.
Let's do it. We're going to go right to Ginga. I'm throwing a curveball at the producer today.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned Innovation City having players from some of these teams with history. Maybe not – I don't know how many of them are futsal.
Some were indoor soccer.
Some were indoor.
Yeah, which is a different game, but some of the skills translate.
Might translate, okay. But one thing, and I put some of it on the screen here, that I feel like is the key insight for Ginga, or like the key principle, the key – I don't know what word I'm looking for. Help me out. It's the key. It's just the key, I think, for Ginga this year is does a year of experience help these players? Because we heard from Giuliani Campos last year when he was on the show that many of the players were either first time or in their first or second year of playing the game of futsal. So we saw athletes, we saw physicality, but we didn't see great futsal.
Yep.
So does Innovation have the upper hand in the game this weekend because of some of that experience? I'm not sure. We're talking about Ginga now. So what do you think about this?
And look, the first player that we need to talk about with Ginga is their captain. Shota Takabatake.
He's their captain?
Yes, he's their captain this year.
Captain.
And look, he earned it. He was one of the players that came in with no futsal experience, and he started in January last season. So middle of the season, he gets started. And his skill was evident immediately. And he even says, if you go check out his bio, his most memorable experience in futsal, I mean, he'd only been playing at that point for a couple of months, so he didn't have a lot to draw on. But still, the most memorable experience was he had a steal from Jeremy Kleppel, and then he slotted home the shot right after in transition. So quick steal and then transition goal. And that was one of the moments where I was like, oh, wow, like, who is this guy? What does he got? What does he bring to the table? And I look at him, I mean, he earned the captainship for Ginga, and it's not just his ability on the court, but it's his ability to bring the fans into the game. So we talk about Sammy Escovel as being somebody that brings the fans into the game, and I think Shota Takabatake has that as well. And he's somebody that I look to as a potential superstar in the FCS.
We got Aiden Hansen in the chat from Shoreline City. What's up, Aiden? We'll be talking about you guys later on. He's asking me to get on the court again. We'll see. I'm no real comment on that. I think this is where I'm going to stay. Bold prediction from Brian. If Ginga takes care of enough business on the road, they make the finals. I mean, I don't think so. I'm gonna disagree with that statement. I think Ginga did have issues on the road last year, but I think they might make the playoffs again. I don't see them because I think we actually are having quarterfinals this year, so I don't see them getting past the semifinal.
Yeah, so I don't see them in the top 4 either. If they do take care of business on the road, I mean, they will have a great enough record to get into the playoffs, because that's always been the biggest hurdle for Ginga. And realistically, if Lansing City wins against Ole last game of the season last year, Ginga doesn't make it in.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's the difference for them, as far as, like, the only reason they got into the playoffs was because Lansing City lost the last game of the season. And so it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, what's the difference for them this year? And I think they, we'll talk about some of the talent they have. Like, one of the players that I'm really excited about for Ginga is we saw him in the FCS tour, Kai Yamazaki. And this is the thing, we didn't know this at the time, but we know now. I had a chance to talk to Satoru Matsushima, and we talked about Kai and how big of an impact he's going to have. He's brand new to futsal as well. So just like Shota was last year, Kai just started playing futsal right before the FCS tour when we saw them. And we were both saying, like, wow, what an impactful player. Like, he's incredible on the ball, really having a great impact on the game, and he was brand new to futsal. And so players can make that transition. It's just a matter of what technical skills do they have. Do they understand the spacing that's required and the differences between the outdoor game and the indoor game? And he's somebody that showed that really early. And so I'm excited about what he's going to bring to the table this season.
And that's really has been the story for the Ginga team is they don't have players coming up from a youth program, at least yet. I think there is youth Ginga, if I'm not mistaken, but they don't have the players that have been playing futsal for a long time. Really, just Satoru is really the only one that has that futsal, to my knowledge, that futsal experience. And so, adding another player like Kai Yamasaki, he did have an impact in the tour, but it's another question of how can Ginga adjust? How can these players who really are soccer players, how can they play the game of futsal? And that's why I think we saw them lean a lot on physicality and athleticism last year, because that's, they couldn't lean on the futsal, technique and skill. So that's going to be interesting for them, and we'll see them right away. I mean, we mentioned their game against Innovation. Let's get right to it. Bold prediction for Ginga this year.
They're going to just miss out on the playoffs.
Just miss out. So with the quarterfinals, that means we have 6 teams make the playoffs, correct? So out of 8 teams, they're in the bottom 2. We're gonna have to maybe at some point in the show we'll give our bold prediction for who's gonna make the playoffs and who's not.
It will come down to the last game of the season.
Who do they play? Do you know? Who
they play Detroit. Last game of the season, and
where
that's,
is it?
Well, actually, you know what? Hold on.
Is it in Detroit or is it in? We have to do some research.
Oh, yeah, got to get this back up.
Also, this light is just super shining in my face.
Actually, the last game of the season for them is against Midwest United. Detroit plays Ole, and that last Saturday of the season is going to be a wild one. So you got Midwest against Ginga, Shoreline against Lansing, and Detroit against Ole. And so last week I said that Shoreline, Lansing, that's going to come down to the last game for them, who makes the playoffs. Yeah. But I also think that for Ginga and Detroit, it's going to come down to the last game as well.
Well, it looks like you already made one person mad, or maybe that was me. I don't know. I'm assuming it was you when you said they weren't going to make the playoffs. Brian, not too happy about that take, talking about his Ginga guys. And Jen also thinks maybe Ginga is a team to lean on. My bold prediction for Ginga this year, I think I know all the teams in the league. I just have to re-remember. I'm only focused on Ginga right now. I think your prediction is, I think that's probably going to be in there. I think it's possible that they could make the quarters. I think we saw them in, obviously they had the away game struggles. So we'll see if they are able to bring better squads and their full squads to the away games. That'll make a difference.
That will make a huge difference.
But I do think that, like the semifinal against Midwest, I don't really feel like that was a very close game. They came here to Lansing in the middle of the season. I don't really feel like that was a very close game. I felt like there was games that were on, when they played on the full-size court, because remember at home they had a couple of games. It was actually against the 2 Grand Rapids teams at home that they played on a small court.
And they beat Midwest United. And they played Ole pretty tight.
Yeah, but I think though, those games are totally different.
Right, completely different.
On a big court. And so the question is, if they have their full squad on the bigger court for those teams, how do they do? And I do think that, they're a quarterfinal team this year.
For me, even in the playoffs last season against Midwest United, I felt like the talent disparity was pretty clear. As far as there were moments when Ginga was able to keep up, and we saw that. We even saw the momentum swing into their favor, but Midwest United was able to keep their composure and really pull away and show like the difference. And for me, that's the difference in the league right now. So when you think about, even though Ginga's was in the league last year and they've been playing for a while, a lot of their players don't have that background in futsal. You have newcomers like Chicago House and Shoreline City who have a really deep background in futsal. So even though they're new to the league, and Shoreline City's a brand new team, Chicago House has a team before, but this is the first time playing FCS. So you have a new club with Shoreline City and a club that's been around for a while in Chicago House just joined FCS. Their players have been playing futsal for years. I mean, some of these players for decades, right? You played with Mendez, the brothers, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about, they have players that have been playing futsal a really long time. So I expect them to integrate a lot better into the structure of futsal and playing at a really high level. And that's really the biggest difference when you see a team like Midwest or Ole or Lansing City step onto the court, even Detroit Imperial, as far as there's a lot more understanding of some of the technical aspects from top to bottom, right? And that's where Ginga really struggles with the depth. And so if they can bring the depth, especially with the player availability concerns on the road, then they might be able to compete. But every time they went on the road, they didn't have their full roster available. And one of the biggest issues last season, which will continue to be an issue this season, is the goalkeeper position, specifically on the road. They have a really strong goalkeeper, Corey Weisenhunt. He didn't travel for any of the games last season.
Yeah, so we'll have to see.
So we'll have to see. And
if he goes with them, that'll make a difference.
Talking to Satoru, one of the things that he said that he's actively working on, because they did try West Rasdorf in goal last season, and that did not work out well. It didn't work out well. But he has another player. We saw him in the tour, Erhan Rahman, and he's really strong on the ball. He was actually recruited by FC Cincinnati to come to Cincinnati to play, and they got him to come. So it was one of those TXT tournaments in North Carolina, which is kind of like a 7v7 tournament. And some of the players from FC Cincinnati said, hey, come over, come play with us. And so they recruited him to come play. He ends up playing at Ginga. And so really solid on the ball, solid technical skills. And Satoru's looking at he might be a key player that they can train to be in goal.
Well, that will be interesting, and that's going to be coming up starting. The story for Ginga starts this Saturday, 2 p.m. They are hosting Innovation City. We're going to be going live with that right here on FCS Live YouTube. First game of the year, so pumped. And we're going to be going to a break. On the other side of the break is Ole Futsal Club. But before we go to break, let's do one more team. I'll let you pick.
Oh, well, we talked about Ginga. I'd really like to talk about another team that had some opportunities on the road, which when we looked at last season, we didn't talk about it a whole lot, about those opportunities on the road. We talked about some player availability concerns, but it was really in combination with some international tournaments. So Detroit Imperial.
Was that just number 3? I don't remember. Nice. We're getting it.
And look, this is one of the things that actually surprised me. I'm going back and looking at preparing for this episode and looking at the results last season. And when I talked to Pierce Brannigan about last season and this season and the preparation, he talked about their commitment as a club to last season to the international experience. So they went to Colombia, they went to Costa Rica, and they had a really great opportunity for their players. But what that meant was that their domestic season was really placed on the back burner, and it showed. And so their road record was 1-5, and their only win came against Midwest.
Yeah,
that was it, and that was the same team that Ginga. That was the only team that Ginga was able to defeat on the road as well. And so you as I started to look at that, I was like, oh, wow. And the part that really was probably the biggest differentiator was the goals scored for Detroit Imperial. So they average.
On the road, you're saying?
Yeah.
On the road?
At home, they average 5 goals a game. 5 goals a game at home. On the road, you take away that one game against Midwest on the road where they just dominated. They put over 10 goals in.
And you can take out that game for everybody.
Yeah, take out the game for everybody.
Okay.
I mean, because every team played that, right? At home, they scored 3 goals a game. 2 goals a game. I mean, on the road, sorry. On the road. Yeah, so 2 goals a game difference between on the road and at home. And it just shows you the difference offensively. They just didn't have any firepower, any attack there. We got to see them firsthand against Midwest United on the road. We saw them against Ole on the road. And it's like, when you don't bring your full roster there, same thing we talked about with Ginga, it makes it incredibly challenging, one, for us to even assess who they are as a team, because they have so many different parts coming to each game. And that's a huge factor for Detroit Imperial that they wanted to do this season with their team, is get players that would commit not only to going to all the games, but to coming to all the practices, because that's a huge part. If you're not showing up to all the practices, how can you be ready for the game?
Some great insight there from a lot of that from Coach Pierce Brannigan, right?
Yep.
So good insight on the team and what we're going to look at this year for them. I put up here on the screen, they're the 2024 FCS champs. I mean, we want to, we should remember this, that, last year they lost in the semifinals to Ole. The year before, they were the FCS champs. They beat Midwest United in the final. And so last year we saw what didn't really look like a defending champs team.
Yep.
So this year, are they going to be able to get back to that, top of the league? And one of the key factors, we talked about their court last year. Their home court was the smallest court, maybe outside of Ginga's secondary court. And of course, this year, the court size is more standardized as far as a full international size court, which, I mean, we had lots of conversation about that last year, but really true futsal being played, if you're going to play at a highest level, this is the size of court we're playing on. And so now they are, their home venue is now going to be a bigger size. And that was one thing that we saw when they would go on the road. Not only did they sometimes were missing some players, but even when they had some of their key players, they had Costa Wells, they had Davide Poche, when they went on the road, and it wasn't a close game.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that Pierce talked about that we, as much as we talked about teams adjusting when they went to Futsal Sala, we did not talk a lot about how Imperial would adjust or how it would impact them playing on the larger court. And one of the call-outs that Pierce made was just from the defensive side. So at Futsal Sala, the court's just not as long as some of these other courts are. So it's from the width perspective, it's pretty standard, but the length of it is a lot shorter. And so what would happen is when they would lose the ball in transition, they would not be prepared to be on defense. Like they would like turn around like, oh wow, I gotta like run to get back, as opposed to at Futsal Sala, they lose the ball and they're already in their final third defending. And so that's the biggest change for them. And so now that they'll be able to be used to playing on that full size court for every single match, I would anticipate them being a lot more structurally sound defensively as well on the road.
Now, did you get any insight from Pierce on if they're training on the large court or if they're still training on a smaller one?
That is one of the things that we talked about, and so their training still may only be on Futsal Sala, but it's one of the things that they're looking at is how to look to train on some of these courts that have larger court size, because it is one of the challenges in training to practice on a really short court in preparation for the games.
Now, one thing that I think is going to be should be a positive for them. There's a player that is rostered this year that he was rostered last year, but we only saw him, I think it was 1, maybe 2 games. Yeah. But it's Omar Labicki.
Yeah.
And he, has talent in the game of futsal, and he made a big impact, I think, on that 2024 FCS championship winning team. So if he is, just because he's rostered doesn't mean that he's going to be playing every game. The teams have to get their rosters in. And sometimes it's not always these are players that are going to be every single game. But if he is a player that is back and is going to be playing every single game, that will be a big help to, especially Davide Depoche.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things. So Depoche has an incredible amount of talent. He had 25 goals and assists last season. No one else on Imperial got into the double digits for goals and assists. And so it showed you this stark contrast of Depoche and anybody else on the team. And so Omar is actually going to be somebody that's going to challenge him for the lead for goals and assists on that team. And you mentioned this with Ginga, but a lot of soccer players playing futsal now, and that's not something that we see at Imperial when you talk about like the developing, and we talk about the youth for teams like Lansing City and Chicago House. Well, Imperial's got youth in spades, and it's one of the things that Pierce was really excited to talk about. They have somebody like Kevin Rodriguez, 17 years old, right? Really high ceiling, strong on the ball, physical. He's challenging for the first line. And when you think about a 17-year-old coming into an Imperial team that just has a lot of grown men on it, somebody like Aboud Aboushman, Abdullah Essela, like really strong players, and he's going to push for that spot as a 17-year-old, that says a lot about some of the talent that they're developing. Another guy that they have that actually they brought in that's newer to futsal, he goes by Yaya. Soleimane El Matuda.
Different Yaya
from
Ginga.
Different Yaya from Ginga. But he's 19, and so he's actually new to futsal. And so one of the things that Imperial's doing is looking for opportunities to bring players in, and they have a youth academy. They're participating in the FCS Futures, and so you can see what they're doing to build structure. And it's one of the things that I really like about what Imperial's done this offseason is instead of just focusing on the on-court experience, so they didn't participate in any of the tours, they didn't participate in the national showcase, they really worked on solidifying their youth academy and solidifying the business end, the fan experience. So they have some really, really cool things planned for the fans this season. So, look, when you get the opportunity, go online, pre-order your tickets for Detroit Imperial home games because they got some fun things in store.
One player that is possibly the most veteran futsal player in the league they have on their side, goalkeeper Emerson Mena, and that he is 100% a difference maker for that team. And having him in goal is, it's huge for them. I think he's going to have a great impact. And, my bold prediction for Detroit is really kind of, I think there is potential for them to do well. I think there's potential for them to get back to the semifinals. And I don't really see them getting into the finals, but it may be. But there's also potential for them to crash and burn, for lack of a better term. I think we saw some challenges, some troubles with red cards, with attitude on the court, and this is something that it's really kind of like you don't really know what's going to happen or what you're going to get, and I think that has been a big challenge for them. And if that goes well for them, then I think with Emerson Mena in goal, Omar Labicki coming back, and, Davide Depoche, Costa Wells supporting that, I think there's opportunity to, at least make the playoffs for sure. I see them getting into the playoffs over Ginga if that's the case. But, we've seen Ole get under their skin, and it gets crazy, And then when you get red cards, you're out for multiple games, and the season's not that long. So to me, that's something that, is a big factor for them is, are they going to explode or are they going to keep it together?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting when I think about Imperial. They're a team that I would not be surprised to see them win the whole thing, and I also would not be surprised to see them miss out on the playoffs. And it kind of shows you the kind of like how much variance there could be. So when you go back to the home game against Ole, the first half of that game, first 30 minutes, that was the best anyone all season had played against Ole until Depoche got the red card. And you look at the difference between that half and the other the away game to Ole that they played, I think, a week later, and then the rest of that game without Depoche, and polar opposites, like just complete opposites, not even the same team playing the games. And it's just like, what happened? And so for me, that's what I think about is there's so many variables, especially with bringing some of these players back, where I think somebody like Omar Labicki is going to be a huge impact on and really help solidify the team because he brings a wealth of experience, not only with Imperial, but with futsal in general. Right now, too, Omar and Depoche, they're actually training with a Champions League futsal team. So
okay.
Yeah, with Malta. So in Malta. And when you think about bringing that level of international experience back to Detroit, that's going to do a lot for their team, and it's really going to help set them up for success this season.
Well, we'll see what kind of impact that has, if any. Your bold prediction for Detroit Imperial this season?
I want to say that I could see them winning it all and advancing far in the playoffs, but I think the bold prediction is that they're going to miss out on the playoffs.
I would agree with that statement. I think they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to say. They have so much talent, and they're on the right path to success. It's just we got a lot of talented teams out there.
I actually want to adjust. I think either them or Ginga get in. That's
Oh,
what I
okay,
think.
okay.
I think either them or Ginga
Them or
get in.
Ginga.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I think. So that is Detroit Imperial.
yeah.
Coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about Ole Futsal Club and FCS newcomers
And-
Shoreline City.
Look, Luke Miller said in the chat, if they get their culture right, they'll be finalist contenders. And I don't think that's really that shocking of a take. I mean, I think that's objectively true. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is I could see them winning.
I think I would need to see what happens when they get their culture right? To quote him, I think I would want to see what happens because I don't feel like I've seen that very much. And so I would have to see it. But, I mean, like I said, 2 years ago they were in the finals, but no Ole, no Shoreline City. Lansing City was in a different spot. So there you go.
Yeah.
Coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about Ole Futsal Club and Shoreline City. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the
there were
third
3 red
half. Go ahead and cut that off.
3 red cards.
You could see it. Welcome back to the third half podcast. Gerard, Gerard, Ascani. The 2026 season preview happening right here, right now. We have 2 more teams to get to. We did 4 last week, 2 earlier in the show, and now we're down to the final 2. It's Ole and Shoreline City. But first, we have a game this weekend. We talked about one of them, the doubleheader, the second half of the doubleheader. It's a 5 p.m. game in Muskegon. Shoreline City, with their first regular season action, hosting the returning finalists, 2 years running finalists, Midwest United. Gerard, what are you thinking for this game?
I'm really excited for this game. So during the summer, had a chance to go to Grand Rapids and watch the Soccer Rebellion, watch a lot of street soccer, and there are going to be a lot of players that are new to this league, but not new to futsal because they've been playing for a long time, and they're with Shoreline City now. And so Guatemala is the team that actually won the league in Grand Rapids. A lot of those players are coming over, and we're seeing them with Shoreline City, and it's like, wow, can they bring that title from the Grand Rapids Soccer Rebellion Street League? Can they bring it to FCS and bring that level of experience? And we saw some of that in the National Showcase when they played Chicago House in a thriller. They were unsuccessful in winning, but they were entertaining, to say the least.
So this game is going to be at 5 p.m. on Saturday. The first ever meeting between these 2 clubs, as Shoreline is actually a brand new club. They came from the Grand Haven Admirals, but as you know, their name now in FCS, this is their new club. However, there are likely still lots of personal connections across these teams. And we'll get into the rosters of Shoreline City. But even though it's the first time they're meeting, there's likely familiarity between them. Maybe not quite as much as Ole and Midwest, but there probably is quite a bit. I know one player for sure is very familiar. And, for this game, Midwest United, they had a very interesting summer. We talked about that last podcast. They won the FCS Tour Lansing, and right before that, they lost in the finals. And then they have the FCS Showcase. They don't make the group stage. They had a friendly against Lansing City here that I don't think we
didn't broadcast
that game,
it, no.
But it was not a good result for them. So, and of course, this summer you may have different players and things. But I remember actually they were talking about the players that they had and some players they didn't have for the Lansing Tour, and they ended up winning that.
Yep.
So, take that for what you will. I feel like Midwest is one of those teams where they played at a high level for this league last year in most of their games. They got to the finals. They were competing with Ole in the finals for a period of time, and I could see them playing at that level. But I think it's interesting that I kind of get this feeling that they could have a downward spiral. And I don't mean to sound like a downer here. I kind of said a similar thing with Detroit, but I think it just for a different reason. Just as the league is adding more teams, there's some more talent coming in, and the way some of the games went last year, I'm not too sure what to think about it. So to me, this is a great game for both of these teams to kind of say how are they going to set themselves up for the rest of the year, and who comes out on top. It's Shoreline at home. My prediction is Shoreline is going to take this by a narrow margin.
Yeah, that's, the sentiment in Grand Rapids right now is that there's one team that can unseat Ole. And surprisingly, it's the newcomer Shoreline City. And it's like, really, that's the team.
Who said
in
that?
Grand Rapids. I mean, it's just kind of
Grand
like the word on the
Rapids said
street. Yeah, the word on the street.
Did you Google Facebook page Grand Rapids?
No,
What's
so look,
the most
I told
recent?
you, we've been spending a lot of time in Grand Rapids going to the street soccer games and just talking to people. And that's the team that a lot of the people in that community think can unseat Ole.
In the street soccer community?
Yeah.
Which you said a lot of Shoreline players come from?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
So that
but
makes
but
sense.
A lot of the Midwest United players also play in that. A lot of the Ole players also play in that. And the team that won is the team that's led by the Mendez brothers, Aldoni and Alex, and Chris Mendez. Guatemala, right? And they also have the goalie from Guatemala, Miguel Cervantes. So when you take all of these players that just won against the Midwest and Ole players, in a way they have bragging rights, right? Like that's the only competition they played together in so far on the futsal scene. They have the bragging rights, and so now they come to FCS. They're confident. They're composed. So, I could see it. I don't think that they're going to unseat Ole, but I do think Ole is going to lose twice this year. We'll talk about that later today. And I think one of those losses will be to Shoreline City.
So what about this game right here? Shoreline City, Midwest United this Saturday, 5 p.m.
I think Midwest United is going to walk away with the win.
Midwest United.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Look, there's been so much talk, so much chatter about Shoreline City and what they bring to the table and how they're going to contend for the championship in their first season. And they got the Mendez brothers, and they got Chris Mendez from Ole, and they got all these great players. I think Midwest United is going to put themselves back on the map. I mean, they're like, what about us? We should have won it last year. We're going to win it this year. And this is going to be a game that's really going to be a statement victory for them.
So that is this Saturday, 5 p.m., the second leg of our doubleheader. Planning to bring you both games live, so be sure to tune in for that. Let's move on to the two teams that we have remaining, starting with Shoreline City.
Shoreline.
So tell me about, were you able to have a conversation with Shoreline?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the insight that you learned from having a conversation with their organization.
Yeah, so Cody Harrell, he's the head coach and kind of like the founder of Shoreline City. One of the biggest things for him is they just have so much talent at Shoreline City. It's how can they integrate it to where they can all play together successfully. And so even some of the players they got from Ole, they got players from Midwest United, and there's different playing styles. How do you get them? And so one of the things that's really important to him is not just being successful on the court and winning games, but also having an entertaining brand of futsal. So it's one of the things that he wants the fan experience. He wants the fans to be captivated by the brand of futsal that they play, and you can see it in the showcase. It was fun to watch them, right? Even when they ended up losing against Chicago House in the semifinal of the showcase, but it was a fun game to watch. And look, they hit the post 7 times in that game. Any one of those or 2 of them find the back of the net, they win. So just a matter of inches between them making it to the final or not.
That was such an interesting game. And we've talked about that one before. The second half just very polluted by how the officiating went. I was looking back at their performance in the summer, and in the first game of the showcase, they play Lansing City, and they won by 2. I think it was 2-4 in that game. And when I was watching it back, the concerns I had from that game for them was what happens when Alex and Aldoni come off the court.
Yeah, that's huge.
That was a problem, and in that game Aldoni did get a red card, and so he came off, and Alex pretty much played the whole rest of the game and was kind of being in a defensive spot, playing that kind of fixo, being sort of an anchor for the team. And so those 2 players, Alex Mendez, Aldoni Mendez, they have a lot of futsal talent. According to the standards of this league. I had a chance to play with both of them at Lansing City. They made a difference on our team when they were on the team and when they weren't. And so they have skill and talent in that way. They're adding Chris Mendez this year, pivot from Ole. They're adding Miguel Cervantes, who played for Midwest last year. So we might see him in goal along with Fabian Rodriguez was their goalie in the tour or in the national showcase. So, you think about what their starting lineup could look like. I think Alex Mendez is listed as a pivot. Chris Mendez also listed as a pivot. I'm guessing that those 3 are going to be playing together.
I would imagine,
on the first line.
Yep.
I liked Carlos Santiago.
Yeah,
that's how you say his last name. But he was doing well as a young player, probably going to come off the bench.
He was only 15.
He's only
during
15.
The showcase.
I felt like he played good against Chicago, particularly. But, there were the moments that kind of concerned me. It was similar to Chicago House where, like, when the first line comes off, what was going on with the second line. In that game against Lansing City, it's the shortened format. It's kind of a weird game. But the game was very different when the Mendez brothers were on the floor and when they weren't. And Lansing City really should have won that game, as far as giving away goals and missing opportunities. And they didn't capitalize when there was a red card given and they had a man up. They didn't get a goal. Yeah. So, and then the game against Chicago House is, obviously they were getting beat pretty bad in that full-length game. And then the the rough officiating happens, and they gain the upper hand because of the physicality of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that's kind of my concern, is like what happens when they're not on the floor, because right now in the showcase, their fitness levels wouldn't allow them to be on the floor for like an entire match. So that's something they're going to have to figure out.
It is. But one of the things, too, so Brandon Gomez, he scored 5 goals
That's right,
in one
Brandon
of those
Gomez.
games. Yeah, so that's another player for them. And that's one of the things when I was talking to Cody about this, they have a lot of young players that are on this team that even might have trained with ABK or Ole in the past, but are local to Muskegon, and they want to play like Carlo Santanilis. So these are players that are really proud of being from Muskegon, being from Shoreline City, and they want to represent for the team, and they want to show how strong their community is. And so they do have some players from Grand Rapids, but there's so much familiarity, just like between Ole and Midwest United, between Shoreline City as well.
And this is something that in the game prediction, I said I think Shoreline's going to take it. This is the area that I think they could really suffer in, is if their second line is not able to have the production, and if the first line is not able to have the minutes. But I just think the emotion of it for these players, I think the Shoreline players can get. They have a lot of emotion that they play with, and you see it from Midwest too. But I think the emotion of it, and they want to make a statement in it, and they're at home. I think they're going to gain the upper hand in that one. But what's your bold prediction for Shoreline City this year?
I mean, I think they're going to make the semifinals.
You think they're going to go to semis?
Yeah, they're going to go to the semis. And they're going to show us. I do think we're going to see the ups and downs from them this season. Right? I think we're going to see some really great games. I think they're going to beat Ole this year. But I also think they're going to lose some games that were like, well, how did they lose that? And I think it's going to go into what you talked about just as far as depth and player availability.
Aiden Hanchett from the chat, he thinks you want to be surprised to see over 500 fans at home.
Wow.
That would be amazing.
That would be. But here's the thing, right? And it's one of the things that we talked about with Grand Rapids, about the community that they've had there. We got the Muskegon Risers right there, and a lot of these players for Shoreline City also have that experience with the Muskegon Risers. That's how they know each other. So some of the players from Grand Rapids that aren't from Muskegon, the reason they know some of these players from Muskegon is because of the Risers. So it wouldn't shock me at all to see really this like fan support levels through the roof. One of the things that Cody Harrell talked about too was really getting the fans involved and creating some unique opportunities for them to attend road games. And so look, if you're a Muskegon fan or you're in the area, stay tuned to the socials, look for their communications, because there might be some really cool opportunities to maybe catch a bus to go to Ginga, right, in Cincinnati. Like, what a cool opportunity to travel with the team. And it's one of the things that we see a lot in England. Teams and clubs provide transportation for fans, and it's one of the things that Cody's wanting to do for his team, and see if we can't make that happen.
So my bold prediction for Shoreline City this year, we were talking over the break. Gerard said, I think I've said 3 teams aren't going to make the playoffs. and right now the setup is 6 teams make it. There's quarterfinals, 1 and 2 get the bye, so 2 teams can't make it. So I'm trying to track in my head, okay, who have I so far said is not going to make it? I see some similarities in like how Detroit Imperial has had, they would play with emotion, and that can get them in trouble with that can get them in trouble.
Yep.
And I see some of that flavor from Shoreline City, and playing with the Mendez brothers. I was on a team that was like, I saw some of that with them too. And so that I think is a big key, is like, will they be able to keep that under wraps and to play with emotion, but not let it boil over and be in disciplinary action. I think that's going to be a factor for them. That
really impacted them in the showcase.
It did. Yeah.
So I mean, Aldoni ended up getting a red card, and
they actually kind of escaped with it, because there was a red card in the first game, and then they played the second game. He wasn't available, but they played a pretty weak side of Grace.
But just the fact against Lansing City, in a game that was a really important match for them, and then he gets the red card, and then they had to play really tight defensively without arguably their best player. And so I think that really lends into what you're talking about as far as like, are they going to be able to weather those moments when there are some questionable calls, right? We know it happens. It's happened to every team at this point. But can you maintain your composure when things go against you?
Yeah, so that'll be a challenge for Shoreline. I think this weekend is going to be a pretty good tell. The first road game, I think, will probably be the biggest tell for them. I think, I don't want to copy you, but I feel like I see that similarity that, I think I could see them in the semifinals. I think they have the talent to put together there. I think it's, I think it's going to come down to that, their fitness in their second line, and I think that's going to determine kind of where they go from there.
And so here's a hot take. The first match of the season, Midwest United against Shoreline City, that's going to be the semifinal. We'll see that matchup in the semifinal.
And then you think Midwest is going to win.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We have one more team to mention. Grand Rapids Ole, we see you in the chat. Cesar Alayo in the chat. Ole Futsal Club, we're wrapping it up with the defending champions. Will Ole continue their unbeaten dominance? They were undefeated all last year. They had one tie at the beginning of the season. Other than that, it was all W's across the board. They're coming in with high confidence. They won the showcase. They had a couple of games in the showcase that were narrow victories, come from behind victories. They were shortened games in those ones against Chicago House and Midwest United. They, in the full-length game, they took care of business against Lansing City. They took care of business against Chicago House. It wasn't really that much of a contest there. That's sort of the context. So tell me, what's your outlook for Ole Futsal Club this year?
So look, Cesar Elias already got it in the chat. They're keeping receipts about Shoreline beating them. They're going to win the league, but only if they bring the high level of focus every single match. And that's where I think a couple of times during the season that we're going to see, either due to player availability, like they got a couple of players injured still from last season. So Sammy Escovel, Adrian Diaz had to have surgery. So both of them are going to most likely miss most of the season. And they got some.
Sammy's having surgery too?
Yeah, Sammy did over the summer.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's huge for two of their core players. And so they're integrating. They do have some really great talent that we'll talk about soon. But I think for me, the biggest thing that stood out to me during the showcase, yes, I know it was like a one-day thing or a couple of days, and it's different with the clock, but in both of those matches, against Chicago House and against Midwest United, Ole did not have their foot on the gas. It was like they were just coasting until it was time to turn it on. If they do that during the regular season, they're going to lose. They're going to lose, especially against a team like Shoreline City, because these other teams want to beat them. They don't care what the game is, if it's an exhibition, if it's a final. They want to beat them. And so I see them losing to a team like Chicago House and Shoreline City this year, because those teams are going to be playing like it's a championship. Whereas Ole's, they're the best team. Right? And that's always the challenge when you go undefeated one season. Like, that's the biggest challenge of, like, okay, what do you have left to accomplish? Right? You already beat everybody. What do you have left to accomplish? And I know for them, they're going to do it again. Right? That's what they have left to accomplish, is they want to repeat. But now this year, instead of just going undefeated, they want to win every single game. Right? Or unbeaten. They went unbeaten last year. This year they want to go undefeated. So that's the real challenge of, can they improve upon the results from last season?
Big target on their back,
and
I don't think that is a situation that they are strangers to. I think they welcome that. Something about Ole that I want to point out is, a couple of things. First, I think it's really difficult to win a match against them with their depth, their extreme depth. We've talked about that. One line, two line, three lines a lot of times, that the level, barely changes. They're losing Chris Mendez this year, but they're getting Daniel De Leon, right? And there's some other new names on there.
Yeah, there's
names that we saw like for 1 or 2 games of the summer as well. Any that stick out to you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of players on here that Fabian Rodriguez was just gushing about. And so we already know that Ole is just an incredibly talented team. but they have somebody like David Zavala. Like this guy, he's playing for Sporting KC's developmental team. That's outdoor in the MLS, and he's coming here to play in the FCS. And it's like, what? And Fabian's saying, like, he's one of the best talents that's ever come out of Ole with Jonathan Stout, which we don't see Jonathan Stout on here. But another name that's similar to Jonathan this summer, had a really big impact in all of the games they played, Gabe Villagomez. Right, and that's a big part of why Daniel De Leon is with Ole, is because he's really close with Villagomez. And so when you add Villagomez and Zavala for potentially the whole season, you know, as much as it's going to hurt not having Adrian Diaz or Sammy Escovel, and then losing Chris Mendez, like, you're bringing in like a lot of talent too. And then another guy that we didn't see at all last year but has been with the club for a long time, Henry Lopez. And so he's been playing since the ABK days, and he goes back to playing with Isaiah Meyer and Gabe Villagomez when they were really young on some of like the U6 and U8 teams. And Fabian said that he was the best player on those teams. So not to say that he's better than them now, but when you say that somebody's better or as good as at that age of Gabe Villagomez and Isaiah Meyer, that says a lot, right? And he's coming in. So that's 3 players that are potentially, arguably, the best players on Ole that we haven't even really seen play yet.
Is that what Coach said?
Yeah, like, I mean, arguably.
Arguably.
I
guess we'll see.
Arguably, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. But we saw it from Gabe Villagomez in the summer. Like he immediately stepped in and had a really substantial impact. And somebody, look, we didn't talk about him a lot during the season because we didn't see him a whole lot. But over the summer, TJ. Do you want to try?
I butchered his name.
Yeah, a lot.
Over and over in that game.
He is
You're not
so
even gonna
fast. Ifa Turati.
He told us after
the
the game.
I think he's from Nigeria.
Okay.
And so, like, here's the thing. You have someone with his incredible speed and pace, and you throw that on top of what Ole already does great with ball control and their creativity, and then you just give them that little extra amount, like, oh, man. So, for me, as much as I did say that they're going to lose a couple of games this season, I think Ole's head and shoulders still better than the rest of the league.
We got some Chicago House fans in the chat. They are ready for the matchup with Ole. What did they say? December 13th, circle the date. Ole Futsal Club. There it is. Ifataroti, right? TJ Ifataroti, right?
Wait for the confirmation of the chat. Wait for the confirmation.
That's what I'm reading.
Ifataroti.
That's what I'm reading.
Ifataroti.
But December 13th, Chicago House going to visit Ole Futsal Club.
Yeah, that's the game I have circled on the calendar. So we were going to start the season with Ole and Chicago House, and I thought, what a great way to start the season. I was trying to convince you to go on the road so we could do the FCS live on the road. But when they play each other, you know Chicago House is going to be amped up for that match.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you mentioned earlier, that when teams are playing Ole, there is an element of, like, especially for a team like Chicago House coming into the league, like, this is our championship game. Teams like Innovation coming into the league, like, this is our, you know, like, there's kind of that feel, right? And so it's like, okay, not just once, but can you sustainably challenge them? You know, I think one thing that doesn't really get talked about a lot that I want to point out that Ole really has benefited from is – you know, we talked about the FCS is a developing league. There's like, teams are developing, our production is developing, you know, and officials are developing too. And the referee structure for FCS, you know, like that for futsal in the United States, like it's being, like, built, right? There's not like something there like for it. So basically what that means is that you have things that are lapses, you have things that are inconsistencies, and you have that as you grow. And, you know, we're hoping to see more than ever, you know, better in that area this year for the FCS. But something that Ole has become very good at is getting that to be on their side. And what I mean by that is they are sneaky with how they instigate on other players. Ways that seem small, that seem kind of insignificant, but if you look at the play, you're like, wow, that was actually kind of a dirty play. And they're very sneaky about it, and they know that, like, they know that there's players and buttons that they can push, and they try to push those buttons, right? Like, I believe they view that as, like, this is a piece of the game, and we're going to take advantage of it.
I mean, it absolutely is a piece of the game. And like that's the part we talk about, maintaining your composure when calls go against you, understanding how to communicate effectively to the referees, understanding what you can and can't get away with, understanding how the game's called. That is all extremely important in any sport, let alone futsal. In any sport you play, the officials are human. They're going to make mistakes, and they're going to call a game a certain way. And it's one of the things that I did think was really unfair about the way that everything turned out for Imperial against Ole at home against football at the Futsal Sala. When Depoche got the red card, I thought there was a lot of the lead up that was instigated by Sammy Esquivel that wasn't really penalized in the way that was really justifiable in contrast to what Depoche got, because he got a red card and it completely changed the game. And if you go back and watch the tape on that, you'll see just a couple of things happen leading up to it that, you may or may not catch on to, but as a former official, I just see some of the ways that Sammy Esquivel was communicating to the official, some of the ways he was undermining the authority of the official, and the official didn't really pick up on it either. And it's some of that subconscious bias that's happening throughout games that Ole's actually really great about it. They're really great at understanding that subconscious game, and they do an excellent job with it. And I wouldn't say as much as it is sneaky as it's intelligent. Like that's when you talk about
sneaky.
Futsal intelligence,
it's sneaky.
like it's to understand what is going to be called or what's not going to be called, or how to influence the referee in calling something a certain way. That's futsal intelligence, and ultimately that's up to the official to be able to control the game. And if the official's not able to control the game, then Ole's going to control the game.
I think it's sneaky, and I think most of the time it's usually sneaky dirty, and they usually benefit from it. And I think they have a lot of talent on their team, and I don't necessarily think that's why they win their games. But I just think that's something that I've noticed, particularly over the summer, is that, there's some things that are happening out there that they are they're trying to strategize about that. And I think it's kind of sneaky, kind of dirty. And that's just my point. That's it.
Well, look, I said it during the game in the playoffs against Imperial. There was a situation. I thought it was a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. There was a pull from behind. At the time, there was some controversy about it. And then later, FIFA actually came out and they said that situation would have been a red card situation. And in that game, Ole did not even get a yellow card. Right? And so, it's wow. And that kind of leans into what you're talking about. But at the same time, when those calls go against teams, they have to figure out ways to adjust and just know that they have to be better. And it's one of the things right now that Ole is superior. And so, you did kind of mention this. We talk about a lot of these teams and clubs like Shoreline City being brand new to futsal, or at least new to the FCS and new as a club forming. Detroit Imperial's only been around. This is their third season. So it's not like they've been around a long time. In a lot of ways,
a lot of their players
have been around,
yeah.
But the club itself, and there's so many logistical just headaches that come from running a club and planning out the travel, planning out the home games and all this stuff. You take a team like Innovation City coming into the league and all of those hurdles that they have to overcome. A team like Ole, not only do they have the tenure that they've had as Ole, but they were ABK before that. They've been around for decades. So in a lot of ways, if you look at developmentally, we have a lot of babies and child coming into the futsal community, right, or children coming in as these teams, whereas Ole has this heritage of futsal, right? They've been around for decades at this point. And so a lot of the things you're saying, like sneaky, it's like experience. And that's really what we're seeing play out in front of us, is just really the different level of experience, and not just in the FCS, not just in this kind of like futsal scene that's this controlled environment, but just going back not only in futsal but in soccer as well.
So for Ole this season, your bold prediction?
Champions. The bold prediction, though, is they're going to lose this season. We will see them lose this season.
But you're saying they're going to take it all.
They're still going to take it all.
Take it all. For me, bold prediction for Ole. Like I said, I think with their depth, it's tough to win. But I do see them losing games this year. Man, what would be a really bold prediction is if they don't get a first round bye. I think that would be a very bold prediction. I don't know if.
They're keeping receipts in the chat.
I know they're keeping receipts. That's okay. You can keep as many as you want. I don't care. Man, I think it's hard to see them not being in one or two at the end of the year to start the playoffs. So I don't think I can make that prediction. I think they're going to be 1 or 2.
I'll say this: if there's any other team that's going to win the league that's not Ole, the road to the championship goes through Ole.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I'd be very surprised if Ole doesn't make it back to the final. And that would, it was so exciting to see them in the final. And I think whoever, if it's not Ole, whoever would win, I think they would want it that way, right? They would want to either go through them in the playoffs or meet them at Lansing City Arena for the finals in late March. That's what they'd want to do. I don't think there's any doubt there. No more words.
No more words. That's like really, like we were talking about preparing, and it's like, it just Ole's really on a different level at this point from everything that I've seen, and I would just anticipate more of that this season. And I think that especially with these new players integrating Henry Lopez, David Zavala, we didn't even talk yet about Daniel Ariano. He was injured all last season, so we never even saw him. Fabian Rodriguez told me they had this player that like really top talent out of Holland, and so I started doing some research. I'm like, wow, we got a Dutch player here, like this international experience. Wow. And then I look, Holland, Michigan. But he won Player of the Year back in high school in Holland, Michigan, led his team to state championship. So, like, another really top-level player that, again, we didn't even talk about. And Daniel De Leon led the league in assists last year. Barely even talked about him tonight. Yeah. And so that's one of the biggest things about Ole is they're so unselfish and they play as a team. And they play in a way that we really don't see from every other team in the league. And that's why they go so deep. And it doesn't matter what line you're on, first, second, or third, you're still going to play at an incredibly high level. And one of the things that Ole does the best is they understand when to make the extra pass. A lot of teams will take the shot at the wrong time or try to make the extra pass to create an opportunity, but they should have taken the shot. And we're like, we should have took the shot. Or they should have taken the extra pass. But what Ole does so well is they understand when to make that extra pass. We see so many tap-ins, so many back post runs.
And they're in the position
exactly
to have the extra pass.
Yes, because they know they play together so well. For me, I think that was the biggest adjustment last season when Adrian Diaz got hurt, because Daniel Diaz and Adrian Diaz, they're twins, they understand each other so well on the court, and there were so many phenomenal passes early in the year just through traffic that just ended up finding one of the Diaz brothers, and it was just like, wow, they're really connected on another level. That when that injury happened, I think it took them a couple games really to like ramp that up and to get those lines, and we saw them tweaking the lines all the way up until the finals. And it was one of the things Fabian was talking about of like figuring out some of this because they had some availability concerns, they had some injuries pop up, and they ended up being successful with all of the changes they had to the line. So they had a ton of consistency early in the season with their lines, and all of that really got thrown out the window late in the season, and they had to really shuffle things around, but they were still able to have that seamless communication and really creativity to be in the right place on the receiving end of those passes.
Well, we saw in the chat a couple of places. This season is heating up. It's gonna be fire, dude. I'm literally guys, this is crazy. I'm literally sweating so bad right now, and this is going to be total fire this year. It's shaping up to be really exciting. First action of the season, 2 days, 2 games on Saturday, November 1st, 2 p.m., 5 p.m., Ginga Innovation first, Shoreline Midwest second, and that's how we're kicking off the year. And that wraps up our entire preview.
Look, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the goalies for Ole.
There's a lot of players to talk about. I know.
That's the whole thing. Like, you look at the roster, and it's just like any player. We didn't even talk about Aaron Gomez or Cesar Alayo outside of the chat. Like, Cesar Martinez.
We pretty much just said, okay, these are the new players.
Yeah, these are the new players.
And their team, because honestly, and we'll say this and then last word for you. But honestly, for Ole, it's like, I feel like there's a reason that a lot of times there's not like a player that sticks out. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason that, at least for me, I'm gravitating towards like, okay, they're talent across their lines.
Yep.
And it was that way for me last year when I was getting to know who this team was. It was hard for me to be like, oh, this is, their best player. Or this is, because it was like It was like the faces would change and the bodies would change, but the play would be a lot the
same. Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's. But how about this? Last word, or phrase, or sound, syllable. What do you think?
It's going to be a red season.
A red season.
Red season.
You think it's going to be a red
It's
season?
going to be a red season.
A season of fire coming up on Saturday, starting today, starting last week. Season of Fire 2026 for FCS. Jared Kluppel, Gerard Scani, thank you so much for tuning in to the third half. We'll see you guys on Saturday. Later.
Committee